Commander Vexthal adjusted his primary viewing lens as the blue world rotated slowly before him. The planet called Earth hung in space like a jewel, its white clouds swirling over green and brown continents. From his position aboard the scout ship Silent Watcher, 3 light-years away from the target system, he could observe without being detected. Another primitive world, he muttered to his second-in-command, Officer Creelan. The reptilian alien's scales shifted from green to yellow, showing his boredom. Look at those pathetic vessels they call spacecraft. On the main screen, grainy images showed human ships moving between Earth and its moon. The vessels looked crude and bulky, like metal cans welded together by children. Their engines produced bright flames of chemical combustion, a technology so outdated that most civilized species had abandoned it thousands of years ago. Their largest warship appears to be only 300 meters long, Creelan reported, reading from his scanner. Our smallest fighter craft could destroy 10 of them without taking damage. Vexthal's mandibles clicked in amusement. The Zephyrian hegemony had conquered 47 star systems over the past century. Each victory had been easier than the last. These humans would barely qualify as target practice. The scout ship's sensors penetrated deep into human space, cataloging every vessel they could detect. Military installations on Earth's surface looked like something from the Stone Age of warfare. Their nuclear weapons were laughably weak compared to plasma cannons. Their defensive satellites moved in predictable orbits, broadcasting their positions to anyone with basic sensors. "Sir, I'm picking up their communication signals," the communications officer announced. They appear to be discussing something called a space program and celebrating the launch of a probe to their outer planets. The bridge crew erupted in laughter. A probe to their outer planets was considered an achievement? The hegemony crossed between star systems as easily as these humans traveled between their cities. For 6 months, the Silent Watcher observed Earth from various hidden positions. They recorded everything: ship movements, defensive positions, military exercises, even the humans' entertainment broadcasts. The picture that emerged was of a species barely capable of defending themselves against an invasion from their own planet, let alone from space. Deep in the hegemony's capital system, War Commander Thakmor reviewed the intelligence reports with growing satisfaction. The holographic display showed Earth's pathetic defenses in detail. Their entire space fleet consisted of fewer than 200 vessels, most of which appeared to be exploration ships rather than proper warships. "This will be over in hours," Thakmor declared to his assembled fleet commanders. "We will use this as a training exercise for our younger officers." The hegemony's military doctrine was simple and effective. Overwhelming force applied quickly would break any resistance before it could organize. They had refined this strategy across dozens of conquests. First, a massive show of force to terrify the enemy, then targeted strikes against command centers and communication networks. Finally, occupation forces would establish control while the native population was still in shock. For Earth, they would deploy the 7th Battle Group, 10,000 of the hegemony's finest warships. Each vessel was a kilometer long and armed with weapons that could crack continents. The humans' crude rockets would be like insects trying to fight dragons. What the Zephyrians did not know was that their every movement had been tracked since the moment they entered the outer edges of the solar system. Hidden sensors, disguised as space debris and natural asteroids, formed an invisible network throughout human space. Advanced artificial intelligence systems analyzed every scan the aliens made, every communication they intercepted. In a facility buried 3 kilometers beneath the Swiss Alps, Admiral Sarah Chen watched the alien scouts through quantum-encrypted displays. The humans had been expecting this day for over 200 years. Every piece of technology the aliens observed had been carefully designed to appear primitive while concealing humanity's true capabilities. The crude chemical rockets were real, but they were decoys. Hidden within their exhaust plumes were gravitational manipulation drives that could accelerate ships to near light speed. The bulky, ungainly appearance of human vessels concealed armor made from metamaterials that could withstand direct hits from stellar-class weapons. Even the nuclear weapons the aliens detected were obsolete models, kept active specifically to mislead potential invaders. "They're taking the bait perfectly," Chen's intelligence chief reported. "Their scouts have been focusing on our surface installations and obvious space assets, just as we predicted." Chen nodded. The deception had been humanity's greatest achievement. When the first radio telescopes detected alien civilizations in the early 21st century, world leaders had made a crucial decision. Instead of announcing humanity's presence to the galaxy, they would remain hidden while preparing for the inevitable first contact. Generation after generation of humans had worked in secret, building a defensive capability that would ensure their species' survival. The best minds in science and engineering had been recruited into projects that officially did not exist. Trillions of dollars had been funneled into research programs hidden within civilian space exploration budgets. The results exceeded even the most optimistic projections. Human scientists had cracked the secrets of faster-than-light travel, energy manipulation on a galactic scale, and weapons technology that could reshape matter at the quantum level. All of this had been accomplished while maintaining the illusion that humanity was still struggling to reach their own moon. The alien scouts continued their observations, never suspecting that their every action was being recorded and analyzed. They saw human ships that appeared to struggle with basic orbital mechanics, never realizing that those same vessels could fold space-time around themselves for instantaneous travel across vast distances. They observed human military exercises using primitive projectile weapons, unaware that humanity had developed directed energy systems capable of disrupting matter at the atomic level. They intercepted human communications about budget constraints and technological limitations, not knowing that these were carefully crafted messages designed to reinforce the illusion of weakness. The most sophisticated part of the deception was the humans themselves. Entire populations lived their daily lives completely unaware of their planet's true defensive capabilities. Only a select few thousand individuals across the globe knew that Earth possessed the most advanced military technology in the known galaxy. This ensured that even if aliens intercepted genuine human communications, they would find only evidence of a primitive, vulnerable species. As the months passed, the Zephyrian scouts grew more confident in their assessment. Their reports painted Earth as an easy target, ripe for conquest. The hegemony's military planners began preparing for what they expected to be a routine subjugation mission. In their hidden command centers, human military leaders watched the alien preparations with grim satisfaction. Every aspect of the coming invasion had been anticipated and planned for. The aliens would arrive expecting to face helpless primitives. Instead, they would discover that they had challenged the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The trap was set. The bait had been taken. Soon, the Zephyrian hegemony would learn the price of underestimating humanity. Admiral Chen stood before a wall display showing the positions of Earth's true defensive fleet. 500,000 warships waited in dimensional hiding spaces throughout the solar system, each one capable of destroying entire enemy fleets. The humans had spent centuries preparing for this moment, and they were ready. The age of deception was about to end. The age of revelation was about to begin. The Zephyrian hegemony's 7th battle group emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, like a storm of metal and energy. 10,000 warships materialized in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the distant sun's light. Each vessel was a testament to the hegemony's military might, bristling with weapons that had conquered worlds across the galaxy. War Commander Thakmor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Domination's Edge, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. The blue world of Earth hung before them, completely unaware of its impending doom. His mandibles clicked in anticipation as he observed the pathetic human response to their arrival. "Sir, we're detecting massive panic across their communication networks," reported the communications officer. "Their primitive detection systems have spotted our fleet." Thakmor's scales shifted to a deeper shade of crimson, indicating his pleasure. Fear was always the first step in conquest. Let the humans tremble as they realized the futility of resistance. On Earth's surface, the reaction appeared exactly as the hegemony expected. News broadcasts showed terrified reporters struggling to maintain composure as they announced the arrival of an alien fleet. Government officials held emergency meetings, their faces pale with shock and fear. Civilians fled major cities in panic, creating massive traffic jams as millions tried to escape what seemed like certain destruction. The United Nations convened an emergency session within hours of the fleet's detection. World leaders spoke in hushed, frightened tones about humanity's options. Military commanders appeared on television, their expressions grim as they discussed Earth's defensive capabilities against such an overwhelming force. "We have perhaps 200 operational spacecraft," General Martinez announced during a press conference. "Against 10,000 alien warships, our chances of meaningful resistance are practically zero." The word spread across the globe within minutes. Humanity seemed to be facing extinction, and their own military leaders were admitting defeat before the battle had even begun. In his hidden command bunker beneath the Swiss Alps, Admiral Sarah Chen watched these public displays with professional admiration. Every panicked news report, every desperate government meeting, every tear shed by terrified civilians was carefully orchestrated theater. The actors playing their roles were some of the world's best, and most of them genuinely believed they were delivering real news to a doomed population. "The aliens are buying it completely," her intelligence chief reported. "Their communications show they expect total surrender within hours of beginning their attack." Chen nodded, her eyes never leaving the tactical display that showed the true situation. Hidden throughout the solar system, humanity's real defensive fleet waited in dimensional pocket space, invisible to the alien sensors. 500,000 warships, each one more advanced than anything the Zephyrians had ever encountered, remained perfectly concealed. The deception extended far beyond hidden fleets. The terrified civilians fleeing Earth's cities were actually being evacuated to underground shelters that could withstand planetary bombardment. The panicked government officials were following scripts written decades earlier. Even the military leaders admitting defeat were playing their assigned roles in humanity's greatest performance. Moore allowed the humans several hours to contemplate their fate before opening communications. When his image appeared on every screen across Earth, his reptilian features were arranged in what his species considered a magnanimous expression. "Primitive humans of the third planet," his translated voice boomed across the airwaves. "You have been selected for incorporation into the Zephyrian hegemony. Your resistance is futile, your weapons are obsolete, your defenses are meaningless." He paused for dramatic effect, enjoying the moment of absolute power over an entire species. "However, the hegemony is merciful to those who submit without resistance. Surrender immediately, and your population will be preserved as a labor force. Continue this pointless defiance, and we will reduce your world to ashes." The ultimatum spread across Earth's communication networks within seconds. News anchors read the alien demands with trembling voices. Religious leaders called for prayer. Military officials held press conferences acknowledging their inability to defend their planet against such overwhelming force. President Morrison appeared on global television 6 hours after the ultimatum, her face a mask of defeat and resignation. "After consulting with military leaders and scientists around the world, I must announce that Earth cannot resist this invasion. For the survival of our species, I am prepared to discuss terms of surrender." The word sent shockwaves across the planet. Humanity's leader was ready to give up without a fight. The message was exactly what the Zephyrians wanted to hear. Thakmore's satisfaction was complete. Another world would fall to the hegemony without significant losses. His younger officers would gain valuable experience in occupation procedures, and his reputation as an efficient conqueror would be further enhanced. "Begin the descent," he ordered. "Deploy landing forces to their major population centers. Establish communication with their leadership and begin the surrender negotiations." The first wave of Zephyrian ships entered Earth's atmosphere in perfect formation. Their energy shields glowed as they pushed through the air, their massive hulls casting shadows over the cities below. Citizens looked up in terror as alien spacecraft descended from the sky like mechanical gods. In the hidden command center, Admiral Chen watched the enemy ships enter the trap with cold satisfaction. Every vessel that descended into Earth's gravity well was moving further away from escape routes. The aliens were positioning themselves exactly where human strategists had predicted they would. "All units report ready," her tactical officer announced. "The dimensional anchors are in position. When we activate the revelation protocol, nothing in this system will be able to escape." Chen's hand hovered over the activation switch that would end humanity's centuries of deception. Around the globe, similar switches waited in the hands of commanders who had trained their entire lives for this moment. The greatest military secret in human history was about to be revealed. The Zephyrian landing craft touched down in major cities across Earth. Armored alien soldiers emerged, expecting to face the terrified resistance of a primitive species. Their sensors detected only the crude weapons they had observed during months of surveillance: projectile firearms, chemical explosives, and primitive aircraft. What they did not detect were the quantum tunnels opening beneath their feet, the reality distortion fields activating around their positions, and the dimensional rifts beginning to form throughout the solar system. Thakmor stood on his bridge, watching his forces establish control over Earth's major cities. Victory was proceeding exactly as planned. In his experience, primitive species always followed the same pattern: initial panic, desperate resistance, and final surrender when faced with superior force. He had no way of knowing that he was about to become part of a very different pattern, one that would reshape the balance of power throughout the galaxy. Admiral Chen's finger moved toward the activation switch. The time for deception had ended. The time for revelation was about to begin. Admiral Sarah Chen's finger pressed the activation switch with the weight of 2 centuries of human preparation behind it. Across the solar system, similar switches were pressed by commanders who had waited their entire lives for this moment. The greatest deception in galactic history was about to end. The first sign that something was wrong came from the Zephyrian sensor operators. Their instruments, which had been tracking empty space moments before, suddenly detected massive energy signatures appearing throughout the solar system. At first, the readings seemed impossible. The sensors had to be malfunctioning. "Sir," the lead sensor operator called out to Thakmor, his voice uncertain, "I'm getting some unusual readings from the outer system." Thakmor barely glanced away from his display showing the successful landing operations on Earth's surface. His forces had encountered no significant resistance. The human military was performing exactly as expected for a primitive species facing superior technology. "Equipment malfunction," he replied dismissively. "Have the technicians run a diagnostic." But the readings were not malfunctioning equipment. Throughout the solar system, space itself began to tear open as dimensional rifts activated. These weren't natural phenomena or random energy discharges. They were carefully calculated openings in the fabric of reality, positioned with mathematical precision at strategic points around the Zephyrian fleet. The first human warship emerged from a dimensional pocket near Jupiter. The Terran Defiance materialized like a ghost becoming solid, its hull gleaming with an inner light that spoke of technologies beyond the Zephyrians' understanding. The ship was enormous, nearly twice the length of Thakmor's flagship, but it moved with the grace of a fighter craft. "Sir?" The sensor operator's voice was now edged with panic. "I'm detecting a massive vessel near the gas giant. It just appeared from nowhere." Thakmor turned his attention to the tactical display, expecting to see one of the crude human ships they had been observing for months. Instead, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The vessel on his screen was clearly of human origin, but it bore no resemblance to the primitive craft his scouts had catalogued. Before he could process this information fully, space erupted with new contacts. Hundreds of rifts opened simultaneously, each one disgorging warships that redefined everything the Zephyrians thought they knew about human technology. The ships emerged in perfect formation, their movements coordinated with precision that suggested a level of military organization, far beyond what any primitive species should possess. The human fleet grew. Before the aliens' eyes, like a steel constellation being born, 100 ships became 1,000. 1,000 became 10,000. The numbers kept climbing as more dimensional rifts opened throughout the solar system. Each new vessel was a masterpiece of engineering that made Zephyrian technology look crude by comparison. "This is impossible," Thakmor whispered, his scales shifting to the pale yellow of fear. "Our intelligence report showed they had fewer than 200 primitive vessels." His tactical officer was frantically updating the threat display as new contacts appeared. The numbers climbed past 50,000, then 100,000, then kept rising. The human fleet was not just large, it was impossibly vast. No single species in the known galaxy possessed anything approaching this level of military capability. "Sir, the count has exceeded 300,000 vessels and is still climbing," the tactical officer reported, his voice barely controlled. "All contacts show energy signatures far beyond our ship classifications. These are not the primitive craft we observed." From her command center on Earth, Admiral Chen watched the revelation unfold with grim satisfaction. The dimensional emergence was proceeding exactly as planned. Each human warship materialized in its predetermined position, creating a three-dimensional web of firepower around the trapped Zephyrian fleet. All units report successful emergence, her tactical officer announced. Total vessel count, 500,000 ships. All systems operational, all weapons charged and ready. Chen nodded. The numbers alone were staggering, but the true shock for the aliens would come when they realized the technological superiority of each individual human vessel. Every ship in the fleet incorporated advances that pushed the boundaries of physics itself. The human ships moved with impossible grace, their gravitational manipulation drives allowing them to change direction without regard for momentum or inertia. Energy fields surrounded each vessel that could deflect attacks or focus devastating amounts of power into precise beams. Most shocking of all, the ships seemed to communicate instantaneously across vast distances, coordinating their movements with perfect precision. On the bridge of the Domination's Edge, Thakmor stared at his tactical display in growing horror. The human fleet had not simply appeared. It had surrounded his forces completely. Every escape route was blocked by formations of ships that outnumbered his fleet 50-1. The Zephyrians, who had arrived expecting to find a defenseless world, now found themselves trapped in what was clearly a carefully prepared kill zone. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his intelligence officer. "Our scouts observed this system for months. Where were these ships hiding?" The intelligence officer's scales had turned the gray of confusion and fear. "Sir, I have no explanation. Our sensors showed no evidence of this fleet. They appear to have emerged from some form of dimensional storage that our technology cannot detect or understand." The implications hit Thakmor like a physical blow. If the humans possessed dimensional technology advanced enough to hide an entire fleet, what other capabilities had they been concealing? The primitive species they had planned to conquer was revealing itself to be something far more dangerous than anyone in the hegemony had imagined. "Admiral." Chen's voice cut through all Zephyrian communication frequencies simultaneously. Her words translated into every language known to the hegemony. The technology required to override their secure communications was itself a demonstration of human superiority. "Attention, Zephyrian forces." Chen's voice was calm and controlled, but it carried an unmistakable authority. "You entered this system believing you faced a primitive, defenseless species. You were mistaken." The human admiral paused, allowing her words to sink in. Throughout the Zephyrian fleet, bridge crews stared at their displays in stunned silence as the full scope of their situation became clear. "For over 2 centuries, humanity has been preparing for this moment. We observed your empire's expansion. We studied your tactics. We learned your weaknesses. Most importantly, we ensured that when first contact came, it would be on our terms, not yours." Thakmor's mandibles clicked frantically as he tried to process what he was hearing. The humans had been watching the hegemony for centuries? They had known about the alien empire and deliberately concealed their own capabilities. The implications were staggering. Every ship you observed, every defensive installation you cataloged, every piece of intelligence you gathered was carefully designed to deceive you. Chen continued. "You saw what we wanted you to see. You believed what we wanted you to believe. And now you find yourself surrounded by the true power of humanity." The human fleet began to move, its formations shifting with fluid precision that demonstrated absolute control of the battlefield. The ship's energy signatures spiked as weapon systems that defied Zephyrian understanding of physics came online. Reality itself seemed to bend around the human vessels as they prepared to demonstrate their true capabilities. "You mistook our restraint for weakness," Admiral Chen's voice carried across the solar system. "You mistook our peace for defenselessness. Today you learn why humans are the galaxy's greatest survivors." The revelation was complete. The Zephyrian hegemony had discovered that they had not found a primitive world to conquer. They had walked into the territory of apex predators who had been waiting patiently for this exact moment. The age of human deception was over. The age of human dominance was about to begin. The silence that followed Admiral Chen's declaration stretched across the solar system like a held breath. 500,000 human warships hung in perfect formation around the trapped Zephyrian fleet, their energy signatures pulsing with barely contained power. On every alien bridge, crews stared at their tactical displays in stunned disbelief. War Commander Thakmor was the first to break the silence. His voice, transmitted on all frequencies, carried the desperate authority of a commander facing the impossible. "Human vessels, you may have superior numbers, but the Zephyrian hegemony does not yield to threats. We have conquered 47 star systems. Our weapons have cracked the crusts of worlds. If you attack us, we will take as many of you with us as possible. Admiral Chen's response came not in words, but in action. A single human vessel, the destroyer Earth's Wrath, moved forward from the vast formation. It approached the Zephyrian flagship with casual confidence, its hull gleaming with energy patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid light. Demonstrate your superior firepower. Chen's voice carried a note of cold amusement. Fire upon that vessel with everything you have. Thakmor hesitated for only a moment before giving the order. The Domination's Edge and 6 nearby cruisers opened fire with their full weapon arrays. Plasma bolts capable of melting through asteroid hulls struck the human destroyer in concentrated volleys. Energy beams that could slice through planetary shields converged on the small ship from multiple angles. The result was not what any Zephyrian had expected. The human vessel's defensive fields absorbed every attack without even flickering. The most powerful weapons in the hegemony's arsenal struck the destroyer and simply vanished. Their energy dissipated harmlessly into quantum foam. The ship continued its approach without slowing, apparently unaffected by bombardment that should have reduced it to vapor. Impossible, Thakmor whispered, his scales turning the deep black of existential terror. Nothing can withstand that level of firepower. The human destroyer came to a stop less than a kilometer from the Zephyrian flagship. For a moment it simply hung there, its presence a silent demonstration of technological superiority. Then, without warning, it fired a single shot. The weapon was unlike anything in Zephyrian experience. Instead of plasma or energy beams, the human ship released what appeared to be a focused distortion in space itself. The attack struck the flagship's forward shields and passed through them as if they were made of paper. The beam continued through the ship's armor, through multiple bulkheads, and emerged from the other side without causing any visible damage. Yet something had happened. Throughout the flagship, every electronic system flickered and died. Lights went out. Gravity generators failed. Life support systems shut down. The ship's massive engines went silent, leaving it drifting helplessly in space. What did you do to us? Thakmor demanded over emergency communications. Quantum cascade disruption, Admiral Chen replied matter-of-factly. We temporarily severed the electromagnetic bonds in your ship's circuitry. Your vessel is completely disabled but undamaged. Your crew is unharmed. This is what human restraint looks like. The demonstration sent shockwaves through the Zephyrian fleet. In seconds, their most powerful warship had been reduced to a floating hulk by a weapon they could not understand or defend against. If the humans could do this to one ship, they could do it to all of them. Chen's voice continued, now addressing the entire alien fleet. You see before you 500,000 vessels, each one capable of feats your science cannot explain. We could destroy your entire fleet in minutes. We could reduce your ships to their component atoms. We could trap you in dimensional bubbles and watch you suffocate in empty space. The human fleet began to move, its formations shifting like a three-dimensional dance of death. Ships that massed millions of tons moved with the agility of fighters, their gravitational drives allowing impossible maneuvers. Energy patterns flowed across their hulls like aurora, beautiful and terrifying displays of power that operated beyond known physics. But we will not, Chen continued, because unlike your hegemony, we do not conquer through fear. We protect through strength. Today you learn the difference. What followed was a masterpiece of military precision and restraint. The human fleet demonstrated its capabilities not through destruction, but through control. Zephyrian ships found themselves caught in gravitational fields that held them motionless. Their weapons were disabled by quantum disruption beams that left everything else untouched. Their communication systems were selectively jammed, cutting them off from each other while leaving emergency channels open. The aliens watched in growing terror as human vessels performed feats that violated everything they understood about space combat. Ships phased in and out of normal space, appearing and disappearing at will. Others seemed to exist in multiple locations simultaneously, their quantum signatures scattered across impossible distances. Most disturbing of all, some human vessels appeared to be manipulating time itself, moving in slow motion while everything around them accelerated. Your empire spans 47 systems. Admiral Chen's voice cut through the chaos of disabled alien ships. Our influence spans 47,000. While you conquered primitives, we established relationships with civilizations your scouts never detected. While you built weapons of destruction, we built networks of cooperation. This revelation hit the Zephyrians like another weapon. The galaxy they thought they knew was far larger and more complex than they had imagined. Humanity was not an isolated primitive species, but part of a vast network of advanced civilizations that had been watching the hegemony's expansion with growing concern. Every system you conquered, we could have stopped you, Chen continued. Every species you enslaved, we could have protected. We chose not to intervene because we believed in giving you the opportunity to change. Today, that opportunity has ended. The human fleet began separating the Zephyrian ships using precise gravitational manipulation to sort them into different groups. Damaged vessels were moved into repair formations where human medical ships began treating wounded aliens. Command ships were isolated and surrounded by heavier escorts. The entire process occurred with mechanical precision that spoke of extensive planning and practice. You will return to your empire, Admiral Chen announced. Some of your ships will remain here as evidence of what happened today. The crews will be returned unharmed through diplomatic channels. The message you carry back is simple. The age of Zephyrian expansion through conquest is over. Thakmor, floating in the powerless bridge of his flagship, found his voice. The hegemony will never accept this humiliation. We will return with larger fleets. We will bring weapons you have never seen. Chen's response carried a note of sad finality. Commander, you still do not understand. We have been watching your empire for centuries. We know every weapon in your arsenal. We have defenses prepared for technologies you have not yet invented. If you return to this system with hostile intent, you will not leave it alive. The human admiral paused, letting the weight of her words sink in before continuing. But we hope you will make a different choice. We hope you will use this opportunity to transform your empire from a force of conquest into a partner in galactic civilization. The choice, as always, is yours. Slowly, systematically, the human fleet began releasing Zephyrian vessels. Ships that had been completely disabled found their systems mysteriously restored. Weapons that had been quantum disrupted came back online. Communications that had been jammed suddenly cleared, but the aliens were changed by what they had experienced. They had seen technology that operated beyond the boundaries of known science. They had witnessed restraint from beings capable of effortless destruction. Most importantly, they had learned that the galaxy contained powers far greater than their empire had ever imagined. As the first Zephyrian ships prepared to depart the solar system, they carried with them the knowledge that would reshape the balance of power throughout the galaxy. The humans had not conquered them through superior firepower, though they possessed it. They had conquered them through the demonstration of superior wisdom, restraint, and purpose. The age of human secrecy was ending. The age of human leadership was about to begin. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself, carried by quantum communication networks that most species did not even know existed. Within days of the confrontation at Earth, every major civilization from the Andromeda Arm to the Outer Rim territories knew the same impossible truth. Humanity, the species dismissed as primitive backwater dwellers, possessed the largest and most advanced military fleet in galactic history. The first to react were the smaller species that had spent centuries hiding from the Zephyrian hegemony's expansion. The Veltar Collective, a peaceful trading confederation, sent their fastest diplomatic vessel to Earth within hours of receiving the news. Ambassador Salavin arrived at the Sol system's edge to find human patrol ships waiting for her, with what could only be described as amused patience. Welcome, Ambassador, came the greeting over her ship's communication system. We have been expecting you. The word sent chills through Salavin's crystalline body structure. They had been expecting her? How could they have known she was coming when she had decided to make the journey only after hearing the incredible reports from the Sol system? The human escort vessel that guided her to Earth was a revelation in itself. Where she expected to see the crude chemical rockets described in intelligence reports, she instead observed a ship that moved through space with impossible grace. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, and energy patterns danced across its surface in ways that suggested technologies beyond her understanding. Your vessel is quite beautiful, she transmitted to her escorts, her curiosity overcoming diplomatic protocol. Thank you, came the reply. The stellar harmony was constructed using techniques we learned from the Nexari artisan worlds. Perhaps you are familiar with their work. Salavin's shock was complete. The Nexari artisan worlds were legendary among spacefaring species, but they had vanished from known space over 3,000 years ago. If the humans had learned techniques from them, it meant contact with civilizations that existed far beyond the current galactic community's knowledge. By the time her ship reached Earth's orbital space, Sullivan had counted over 200 vessels in the immediate area. Each one was unique in design and clearly represented technology beyond anything her species had achieved. Most disturbing of all, they moved in perfect coordination despite their vast numbers, suggesting a level of communication and control that defied conventional understanding. Her meeting with Admiral Chen took place in a facility that existed simultaneously on Earth's surface and in orbital space, connected by what humans casually referred to as dimensional bridging. The ambassador found herself sitting across from a woman who appeared deceptively ordinary, yet whose eyes held the weight of cosmic awareness. Ambassador Sullivan, Chen began, "Your collective has maintained neutrality for over 8 centuries, while watching aggressive species expand their territories through conquest. We respect that choice, but the galaxy is changing. The age where civilized species could hide from galactic affairs is ending." The Admiral gestured to a holographic display that showed the current state of known space. The Zephyrian hegemony's territory appeared in red, while other aggressive empires were marked in similar threatening colors. But vast areas of the galaxy showed in blue, representing what Chen described as allied civilizations. "The network you see here has existed for over 2 millennia, Chen explained. "Hundreds of species working together, sharing knowledge, protecting each other from exactly the kind of expansion the hegemony represents. Humanity joined this alliance centuries ago, but we chose to remain hidden until the time was right to reveal ourselves." Sullivan stared at the display in wonder. The galaxy she thought she knew was revealed as only a small fraction of a much larger, more complex civilization. The humans had not emerged from nowhere. They had been part of something vast and ancient all along. Meanwhile, in the heart of Zephyrian space, War Commander Thakmor faced a tribunal of the hegemony's highest military leaders. His scaled features showed the deep exhaustion of someone who had seen his entire worldview shattered in a single day. "Explain again how a primitive species managed to hide 500,000 warships," Supreme War Leader Caxthul demanded, her voice carrying the dangerous edge of barely controlled rage. Thakmor's report had been met with disbelief, then anger, then a growing terror as confirmation arrived from other sources throughout the galaxy. The humans had not simply revealed advanced technology. They had demonstrated capabilities that surpassed every known civilization. They used dimensional storage technology that our sensors cannot detect, Thakmor replied, his voice hollow with defeat. "Every piece of intelligence we gathered was deliberately false. They allowed us to see what they wanted us to see while hiding their true capabilities. The implications were staggering. If humanity could deceive the hegemony so completely, what other species possessed hidden capabilities? How many other primitive civilizations were actually advanced powers waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves?" Within weeks of the Sol System confrontation, the Zephyrian Empire began experiencing its first serious internal rebellions in over a century. Subject species that had accepted hegemony rule now questioned whether their oppressors were truly as invincible as they claimed. The news that humans had effortlessly disabled an entire Zephyrian fleet spread through slave worlds like wildfire, igniting hope in populations that had known only subjugation. The Corval mining colonies were the first to declare independence, their message transmitted on all frequencies. If primitive humans can defeat the hegemony, then freedom is possible for all enslaved peoples. The rebellion spread with shocking speed. The Zephyrians, who had ruled through fear and overwhelming force, suddenly found their authority challenged by species they had considered permanently conquered. Their fleets, which had once seemed invincible, now appeared pathetically small compared to the forces humanity had revealed. Admiral Chen watched these developments from her command center with mixed emotions. The revelation of human power had achieved its intended effect of destabilizing aggressive empires, but it had also unleashed forces that would reshape the entire galaxy. "Incoming transmission from the Galactic Council," her communications officer reported. "They're requesting immediate audience with human leadership." Chen smiled grimly. The Galactic Council represented the oldest and most conservative civilizations in known space. For centuries, they had maintained the balance of power through careful diplomacy and strategic non-intervention. The sudden emergence of humanity as a major galactic power would force them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about galactic politics. The meeting took place in neutral space, aboard a massive station that existed in a pocket dimension, maintained by technologies older than most current civilizations. Council representatives from dozens of species gathered in a chamber that could accommodate their vastly different physiological requirements. Counselor Prime Zephyra, speaking for the assembled civilizations, addressed Admiral Chen with careful formality. Admiral, the emergence of humanity as a galactic power has created instabilities that threaten the peace we have maintained for millennia. We must discuss how to integrate your capabilities into the existing order. Chen's response was respectful but firm. Counselor, with respect, the existing order has allowed aggressive species like the Zephyrian hegemony to conquer and enslave hundreds of worlds. The peace you speak of was maintained by allowing injustice to flourish unchallenged. Humanity cannot accept that approach. The Admiral gestured to a holographic display showing the current state of galactic civilization. Our alliance network spans systems you have never contacted. We have relationships with species you believe extinct. Most importantly, we have the capability to enforce justice, rather than simply maintaining the status quo. What followed was not conquest or domination, but the most significant diplomatic revolution in galactic history. Humanity did not impose its will through superior firepower, though it possessed overwhelming military superiority. Instead, they offered something the galaxy had never seen: protection without subjugation, strength without oppression. Species that had lived in fear of aggressive neighbors suddenly found themselves under the protection of the human alliance network. Civilizations that had been conquered found themselves liberated by fleets that appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly after completing their missions. Most importantly, the balance of power shifted from favoring the strongest military forces to supporting the most cooperative civilizations. The Zephyrian hegemony, faced with widespread rebellion and the knowledge that humanity could end their empire at any moment, began the slow process of transformation. Some hardline factions chose to fight, only to discover that human forces could appear anywhere in their territory without warning. Others chose cooperation, finding that humanity offered partnership rather than revenge to former enemies willing to change. Admiral, Chen stood before the United Nations and a galaxy-wide audience as she delivered what would become known as the Sol Declaration. For too long, the galaxy has been shaped by the belief that might makes right, that the strong should rule the weak, that peace can only be maintained through the threat of destruction.